Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So I've got an update on the Twitter lawsuit. You may recall I covered the story back in October under, I believe it was the old format of the show back in October. But let me just give a recap here. The story from October comes from Reuters. Twitter Incorporated sued the U.S. Department of Justice, intensifying its battle with federal agencies as the internet industry's self-described champion of free speech seeks the right to reveal the extent of U.S. government surveillance. The lawsuit, which Twitter said follows months of fruitless negotiations with the government, marks an escalation in the internet industry's battle over government gag orders on the nature and number of requests for private user information. Essentially, Twitter wants to be able to tell users how many and what kind of special warrants they receive from the U.S. government. But right now they are prohibited from doing so under a clause of the USA Patriot Act that says that you can't give information about these special warrants. And basically, Twitter is trying to find out whether or not they can use a warrant canary. A warrant canary is a phrase or a thing that happens up until the point in which one of these special warrants is given to the person or the organization, and then after that happens, then the warrant canary goes away. So, for instance, the Freedom Fiends radio show, their warrant canary is the word worms. I have several warrant canaries. One of them is in the daily newscast that I do, the commodity prices of gold, silver, and Bitcoin. If at some point I stop giving the daily spot price of gold and silver and the current trading price of Bitcoin as of the time that I record the newscast, then that will be a signal that something has happened and I've gotten one of these pieces of paper from a federal agency where they want some kind of information. Another one is on this very radio program on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. I have a special music bed set up to where I'm not sure how many people would really or get the reference of the music, but back in the 90s, there was a wrestling group called the New World Order. It began with Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash, and eventually grew to, dozens of wrestlers were part of the NWO. But they had a theme song, and if that theme song ever interrupts this show, then that will serve as a warrant canary to signal something has happened. On the monthly newspaper that I do, if it ever stops being released under a copy heart license, that is a warrant canary. Something has happened. So, other people have other warrant canaries. I believe Brian Sovereign from Sovereign Tech has a warrant canary where he refers to himself as the Golden Stallion. So if for some reason Brian Sovereign stops calling himself the Golden Stallion, then something has happened. People need to worry about Brian Sovereign's safety. Other people, I'm sure other people have warrant canaries. I don't know what all of them are. But Twitter has basically, in their lawsuit, asked the federal government whether or not warrant canaries are legal. Now, that's not the actual words that are used, but the way they have worded the suit. And I'll post the link to the Reuters article, and I'll see if I can't find the actual filing of the suit, which I know I read at some point I'll get those posted in the show notes for you. That way you can, finish reading the article from Reuters. Well, something happened in that lawsuit a couple of weeks ago. And no, unfortunately, it is not that the court ruled in Twitter's favor. Well, the court didn't rule against Twitter either. The Department of Justice is asking the federal court to dismiss the lawsuit brought by Twitter that claims the social media company's First Amendment rights are being violated. Twitter, this article coming from The Hill, says Twitter filed the lawsuit after it was blocked from publishing transparency reports with exact details on the number of government orders it receives to turn over customer information. The DOJ, in a court filing earlier in January, denied that its non-disclosure policies violate the First Amendment, maintaining it must balance transparency with national security concerns. So let me just real quick mention what these non-disclosure policies. So if a company that does one of these transparency reports puts out a report that says we received 205 requests for user data, they can't do that. They must say we received between 0 and 500 requests. Because saying 205 somehow makes Al-Qaeda want to, bomb the White House, whereas if you say between 0 and 500, then Al-Qaeda doesn't want to bomb the White House, or something along those lines. It makes absolutely no sense. So don't try to, use logic with these people. But that's their claim, is if you give an exact number, that's a national security concern. But if you give a broad number, 0 to 500, or 501 to 1,000, that's okay. But you can't say 205 or 574. Nope. That's a national security concern to say exactly how many. But a really broad number, yeah, that's okay. There's a quote here from the Justice Department brief that says the additional material that Twitter seeks to publish is information that the government has judged as properly protected classified national security information, the disclosure of which would risk harm to national security. The department also asked that the court dismiss a number of other aspects of Twitter's complaint before taking up the First Amendment issue. The social media company announced in October it would sue the Justice Department. Twitter maintains that its First Amendment rights are being violated because of its inability to publish the number of orders received and what types of legal processes have not been received. So, again, here you have something, what types of processes have not been received. So Twitter right now is being prohibited from explicitly saying we have not received any of the following warrants from the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, or any other government agency. They can't say we've not received any. They just can't mention it at all, or they have to say we've received between 0 and 500, or 500 to 1,000, or some other arbitrary number. There's more on this when we come back. Peace, love, Liberty Radio. The Doublespeak Dictionary by Leslie Starr O'Hara satirizes the marked difference between the ideal of we the people and the reality of we the elite, while offering an insightful glimpse into the clockworks of the totalitarian mind. Ever irreverent but never irrelevant, the Doublespeak Dictionary serves as a subversive and humorous but timely reminder that the emperor has no clothes. The Doublespeak Dictionary is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. ExpressCoin is the best choice for buying Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, and more. ExpressCoin prides themselves on their customer service, so much so that the back end on the website should allow them to be even more focused on your needs. Get your cryptocurrencies with money order, check, wire transfer, or cash deposit. Get started at expresscoin.fppradio.com. That's expresscoin.fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for t-shirts, precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. There's an Amazon shopping iframe built into the website, or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. That's shop.fppradio.com. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. The article here from thehill.com continues. It says the government restricts companies from disclosing the exact number of national security letters and Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court orders given to them. The letters allow agents to obtain records about people's phone, internet, and financial activity without a court order. The vast majority of the letters also place a gag order on the companies handing over the information, which prevents them from disclosing the details of what they are forced to hand over to the federal government. And I am fairly certain I've shared this story before, that I have heard from Judge Andrew Napolitano about a librarian who was at work in a library. Of course, librarians tend to work in libraries. So she's at work in a library. Federal agent comes in with one of these national security letters that he signed himself that no other person has to sign off on. That's the horrible thing about these damn national security letters, is that the agents sign off on them themselves. At least with a search warrant, there's the illusion that there's a check and balance on this, right? So with a regular search warrant, you've got a police officer that writes something up, and then he goes to a court, and the judge looks it over and signs off on it. So at least there's the illusion of a check. With these national security letters, the agent writes it up himself. With the FISA court, again, it's one of these things. There's the illusion that there's a court, but I think it was the FISA court has only ever rejected 11 requests for wiretapping. It's some minuscule number that basically, when you do the calculations, you have to go several decimal points to even notice that it's not 100%. So, you've got these entities that basically rubber stamp everything that happens that government agencies want done. So you've got a government agent that decides, oh, well, I want to go see Darryl Perry's library records, and goes to a librarian and says, here's a national security letter, give me Darryl Perry's library records. The librarian, in the case that is referenced by Andrew Napolitano, the librarian had no clue what this letter was, so she asked another librarian if the other librarian had any kind of clue what this thing was that the agent handed her. She was then charged with a felony for violating the gag order that was attached to the national security letter that she had just been given. She had no clue what it was. She's trying to get some kind of assistance, and she's charged with a felony. And my understanding of the way these gag orders are written, they are written in such a way as to where it makes it illegal for a person to speak to their lawyer about the national security letter or FISA court order or any other sort of thing that's given to them by a federal agent under part of the USA Patriot Act. And they consider that justice in America? The supposed land of the free and supposed home of the brave, and you've got government agents that write up their own orders for searches and then attach a gag order so that you can't talk to anyone, including your lawyer, about it. I do applaud Twitter on suing the federal government on this, But unfortunately, I don't think that Twitter is going to wind up winning their case. The article here continues. It says the government and a number of technology companies, not including Twitter, came to an agreement last year that allowed them to publish transparency reports, or rather publish to their transparency reports the amount of government orders they receive with a broad range. And that's the figure that I had mentioned earlier, the 0 to 500, 501 to 1,000, or over 1,000 is how I previously read the thing. There could be some other, like between 1,000 and 2,500. But you have these extremely broad numbers that mean nothing to anybody other than, oh, well, they got something. So 0 to 500 could be 1, could be 499, could be 500. Nobody knows except for the company, and they're not allowed to say. The feds probably don't even have accurate records, so they wouldn't know if the number's right anyway. The article concludes, it says the agreement does not allow companies to disclose the exact number of orders, even if the number is 0. So you can't say we have not received any. You can just say we've received between 0 and 500 if the number is 0. And that's something that Twitter is hoping to wind up getting some sort of answer on. The article concludes, it says a similar case dealing with 2 unnamed companies went before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in October, but it does not mention whether or not there was a ruling on that in October. I've also not found any updates from the Twitter case, but it is something that I have been interested in and I will continue to report on when I get the chance. There's an interesting article from UPI about Russia. And I say that it's interesting because for some reason the Russian parliament is trying to legislate something that happened in 1990 or express some sort of official government position of an incident that happened 25 years ago. What exactly am I talking about? Well, the Russian parliament is considering just now in 2015, just now they are considering legislation that would denounce the 1990 reunification of Germany as an illegal territorial land grab of East Germany by West Germany. UPI reports that the move is an attempt to justify Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea from Ukraine. The bill here was introduced by Communist Party legislator Nikolai Ivanov, and he said, unlike Crimea, a referendum was not conducted in the German Democratic Republic. That, quote, was a reference to East Germany by its official name. Ivanov introduced the bill in Parliament's lower house, the State Duma. He said he was not sure how the bill, now being studied by the Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, will fare, but added he was confident he had the moral support of his legislative colleagues. Former Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev, a crucial party in Germany's unification, was critical of Ivanov's legislation, telling Russia's Interfax news agency that the idea was rubbish. Gorbachev says you cannot evaluate the events that took place in a different epoch in different times from today's positions. What referendum could they launch in the German Democratic Republic when in both states, in the East and in the West, they held rallies with hundreds of thousands of participants under the slogan, "We are one nation"? There's more when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for t-shirts, precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. There's an Amazon shopping iframe built into the website, or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. That's shop.fppradio.com. Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Coinbase has more than 1 million consumer wallets and is trusted by over 25,000 merchants, including Overstock.com, Khan Academy, Reddit, and of course, FPP. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and Numery supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month or any amount of Bitcoin per month, thanks to the recurring payment options provided by Coinbase. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So, there's a news headline. I will not get into the story, but I just saw a news headline that should bring a smile to the faces of some. I don't know anyone personally who this would bring a frown to their face, but I know people that would be happy that this headline came out. Mitt Romney says he will not run for president in 2016. I know. Some people think, well, he lost to the guy that lost in 2008. And then he won the nomination in 2012. If he would just run in 2016, third time's a charm. But, well, for the 5 people in the world that actually wanted that to happen, I'm sorry, but no. Mitt Romney says he will not run. And hopefully the Republican Party, I know there's a lot of talk within the Libertarian Party about winding up to eventually endorse or nominate NOTA, which is none of the above. Hopefully the Republicans wind up doing that, because there have been just so many elections to where the Republicans and the Democrats have jointly spoiled elections for the Libertarians. So if just both of those parties decide to not run a candidate in 2016, then they might just stop spoiling elections for Libertarians. I know that's opposite of what you normally hear, right? Normally you hear how the Libertarians spoiled the election for the Republican, even though, based on math, that's not what happens. Statistically, people that vote Libertarian, the plurality would not have voted in the election had there not been a Libertarian. And a slight majority of the remaining people. So once you remove the largest chunk of people that vote Libertarian, that say, I would not have voted had the Libertarian not been on the ballot, the rest of the people, there's a slight majority that said that they would have voted Democrat, and then next, several percentage points behind, is people that said that they would have voted for the Republican. So, contrary to popular belief, Libertarians don't take more votes from Republicans. Based on math, they take votes from, basically nobody, because, a vote does not belong to a major party candidate. But, based on math, the plurality say they would not have voted. Secondly, people say, I would have voted Democrat. And then thirdly, they would have voted Republican. And then there's still a small percentage that said, well, I would have voted for an independent, even though there might not have necessarily been an independent in the race. And then there's always the people, well, I don't really know who I would have voted for had this guy not been on the ballot. But that's really a small amount. So it's they weren't going to vote. They would have voted Democrat. They would have voted Republican. So, if the Republicans just stopped running candidates, they would stop spoiling elections for libertarians. Rant about spoiled elections over. The Senate yesterday did something that I know will make some people happy and some people not happy. Isn't that really how it always is when, legislators wind up voting on things? Some people are happy, other people are not happy, but people aren't necessarily happy or not happy for the same reasons. That there are, many reasons to either support or oppose this particular thing. And this particular thing is the Keystone XL pipeline. The Senate on Thursday voted 62-36 to approve building the Keystone XL oil sands pipeline, delivering Republicans the first legislative victory of their new majority. Yeah, you see how happy I am about that, right? And the reason that I think that this is not a good thing, it's not because I hate business and that I think that, people should not have oil or whatever. No, the reason that I'm opposed to the Keystone XL pipeline, it's not even the environmental issue. And, there certainly are valid reasons to oppose this from an environmental standpoint. But the one major thing that most people are overlooking is that the legislation that came out of the House that was amended in the Senate allowed for the use of eminent domain to build this pipeline. The Senate, according to one story that I read, actually amended the bill. I've not read the bill to know if this is in fact accurate, but I did read a news story that said that they removed the eminent domain clause from the legislation. And again, I've not read the legislation to see if that's actually, how it's being reported is accurate. Just like earlier in the week, actually, no, it was last week, when the Republicans passed that, so-called anti-abortion bill that got a bunch of people all flustered and made other people overjoyed. It wasn't an anti-abortion bill in the sense of they were trying to prohibit abortions from happening and passing legislation, no one can ever have an abortion. What they passed was something saying that federal tax monies could not be spent on abortions, that federal employees would be prohibited from using their paycheck to purchase an insurance policy that covered abortion. So it was not, as was being reported in a lot of the mainstream news, an anti-abortion bill. It was a taxpayers should not fund this bill. And I think that there should be more of those types of bills. Taxpayers should not fund this. Okay, does that mean that I'm opposed to, taxpayers should not fund NASA? Does that mean that I'm opposed to sending rockets into space? No. I just don't want to have money stolen from me to pay for it. Taxpayers should not pay for fill in the blank. Roads, schools, ice cream trucks. I love ice cream. I love ice cream trucks because ice cream trucks deliver ice cream. But I don't want the government to pay for it. And when I say the government, with stolen money, because all of the money they have is stolen in some kind of way, I don't want taxpayer funds to go to it. But that doesn't mean that I oppose the thing necessarily. Maybe I really hate playgrounds. Maybe I really love playgrounds. Either way, taxpayers shouldn't be forced to pay for it. The article here about the Keystone XL pipeline from The Hill continues. It says 9 Democrats joined with the Republicans in voting for the $8 billion, with a B, $8 billion project, 5 votes short of the 2/3 majority that would be needed to override a promised veto from President Obama. The article then goes on to list the 9 Democrats that voted for the Keystone Pipeline, several of these, surprise, surprise, they're in states that would directly benefit from the Keystone Pipeline, meaning that the pipeline would run through there, which would create jobs for people in that area. So this is not about whether or not it's the right or the wrong thing to do. This, for them, is about money, money, money. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Have a good weekend.